Hi everyone and welcome to Cooking with Cricket. On today's episode I'm going to show you how I make my homemade brownies. And I want to give a special shout out to my cousin Chuck who came up with the name. He calls them Cricket's Choco Creamy Squares. So let's get started. For this recipe you will need to preheat your oven to 350 degrees. And I use an 8 by 8 inch square pan that I've lined with non-stick tin foil. If you use just regular tin foil, I would go ahead and spray it or lightly butter it. You'll also need 1 1/4 cups of granulated sugar, 3/4 cup of self-rising flour, 1/3 cup of cocoa, and you can use any kind, 2 eggs, 1/2 cup of chocolate chips that you're going to need to melt, 1 teaspoon of vanilla flavoring or vanilla extract. You're going to need 3/4 cup of butter that's melted. That's 1 stick plus 4 tablespoons. So let me get the butter and the chocolate chips melted and we'll get started. And to melt your chips, just place them in a microwave safe bowl. And at first put them on for like 20 seconds, stir them real good, and then go like 10-15 second intervals after that until they become melted. And go ahead and melt your butter and let it kind of slightly cool. So when I get that done, we'll be right back. Alright, I need to tell you, I don't think I did, that on the chocolate chips, I use semi-sweet chocolate chips. And also, when I buy my chocolate chips, I store them in the freezer. That way it keeps a long time. And if you can find a good sale on them, you could really stock up. Also on my stick butter, I store that in the freezer too. So let's get started. What you do first is to take your melted butter, pour it in your mixing bowl, and add your sugar. And now whisk that real good. You don't want your butter to be real hot because you're going to be adding the eggs next. But kind of stir this real good until your sugar dissolves just a little bit. About 30 seconds to a minute. Once you get that mixed well, go ahead and add your 2 eggs. And you can go ahead and add your vanilla now too. Now before I add, and I'm using self-rising flour with this, I go ahead and I put that in a little sifter and I sift the flour and the cocoa together. You want to get out any lumps. Sometimes cocoa has a lot of lumps in it. Go ahead and mix this in. Once it starts to come together, you can go ahead and add in your melted chocolate. And this is semi-sweet chocolate chips that I've melted. It will seem like that it's all not going to come together, but it does. Once you get this mixed well, you can always add in extra chocolate chips, nuts, anything that you want to add to it. I've before added extra chocolate chips, crushed up candy bars, put it in there. Once you get this mixed well, put it in your pan and put it in your 350 degrees preheated oven. Spread it out a little bit. Now we're ready to bake. Alright, my brownies baked for about 33 minutes. You can tell when they're done when you stick a toothpick in there and it comes out almost clean. A few crumbs is okay, and they will sink a little bit, but that's fine. So just place them on a rack in the pan and let them sit there at least 30 minutes. I want to add in that if you use a bigger size pan, you might not need to have to cook your brownies as long as I did mine. Like I say, this is an 8 by 8 by 2 inch pan. You can use a 9 by 9. They'll be just a little bit thinner, but that's fine. The cooking time it took me today was 33 minutes, but it might take yours a little bit longer to cook. So after it's cooled in the pan, I've left mine setting for about 45 minutes. You just remove them. Just kind of spread back your foil. Like I say, these are not very sweet brownies, but they're still kind of gooey in the middle, but that's how I like them. And it's okay that they've sunk in the middle some, but just take it, cut it in half, and then I cut that half in half again, and they're gonna fall apart. And if you want to clean your knife up after each cut, that's fine. And just take them, place them in your serving dish. I store mine covered in an airtight container. You can let them cool completely, cover them up, and keep them in the refrigerator. And like what I like to do is if I store them that way in the refrigerator, we take them out, pop them in the microwave for a couple of seconds, and especially if you add extra chocolate chips in there, it's real good. It gets real good and melty. Eat them just like this, or serve them with ice cream or anything else. But I hope you enjoy.